egotistical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL Network.
Yes, welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network here for our first patron feedback show of the season. This is the final show of the week where we recap everything that happened in the previous week and get your questions, which you can submit every single week on our social media. You can find us at the SNL Network to fill out a Google form on Twitter that we put out, or send in as a response to our Instagram stories questions for our podcasters, where we will answer anything from the week and anything to look forward to the next week. So this week we talked about everything from the Miles Teller premiere, and we're going to look forward to everything from the Brendan Gleeson premiere. So very excited about the week of shows. We had the Hot Take Show was fiery as always. The Roundtable, I think, had some incredible discussion, and last night's By the Number Show premiered our first weekly edition of the By the Number Show. So check out all of those shows. And then tonight I am here with incredible patrons to talk through all of those questions. And if you're wondering, what is a patron? How do I become a patron? And I would like to do this too. Well, you can. You can join us at patreon.com/the SNL Network. All you have to do is join us to become a part of our community. You get some really fun perks, like getting to co-host these shows in case you've ever wanted to do that. You can also join our patron Discord server, where we have conversations about SNL every single day, and more perks to come. Really excited about all those things we're working on for season 48. And two of our patrons that were with us all the way back in season 47 and stayed on with us to support us through season 48 are Brennan Keller and Lewis Cooper. So Brennan, let me start with you. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I went to a concert yesterday, got a new job, a lot of fun stuff. Yeah, doing pretty good. And most importantly, Saturday Night Live is back on television. So really, really good week. Yeah.
Glad to hear you're doing so well, and happy for you with the job. But what concert did you go see?
I saw Joji yesterday at up in Minneapolis, and it's a really good show. We had the VIP, so we got a nice T-shirt. I got a signed picture and stuff. So pretty cool. Nice. Pretty cool show. Mm-hmm.
Okay, for sure. Well, if you don't know Brennan, he's really active on the Live from New York subreddit, so you can always interact with him over there, and he's a great part of these patron shows. And then joining us all the way across the pond from Scotland is not Ireland, where Brendan Gleeson's from, Scotland, is Lewis Cooper. Lewis, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I've had a very busy week, and I've also been fighting a bit of Freshers flu. I don't know if you have that in America, but if you've studied Freshers flu, the first couple weeks of university, because you've got so many people coming from across the world, a bunch of like colds and flus kind of combine, and everyone gets a little sick. So I've been fighting that the last couple of weeks, and I was very busy this week, but I've had a lot of fun. And the sickness isn't great, but to quote Bowen Yang's iconic catchphrase, it is what it is.
Yeah. So, I wasn't ready, but here.
It is what it is.
I think what we have here is mono. I think that's what people get when they say
okay.
But really excited to get to talk to the two of you. So last year when we were doing these patron feedback shows, they're always really fun because they're right at the end of the week and they're super casual, and we just get to talk through like really anything else that we didn't get to talk about this week and get some really fun opinions. And we did this thing last year where we were going through social media like to talk about what people said online about the show. I don't think we're going to do that every single week for this season. I think if there's something interesting on social media that comes up, I think we can integrate that into the answering of the questions, because the truth is we get a lot of questions every single week from all of you, and we want to make sure that we can answer all of them. So I'm going to try my best to get to as many questions as possible that are obviously relevant to the show. So we will do that tonight, and we'll start to get to those questions in just a moment. But first, to start off, we have to get Brennan and Lewis's opinions on this episode, the premiere of season 48. So Brennan, let me start with you. How are you feeling about the premiere?
I was higher on it than a lot of people. I saw a mixed bag of reactions from a lot of people, including, the SNL critics versus the people that watch every week versus the people that just watch, when they randomly catch a new episode. It's just, the Twitter was interesting depending on what sketch they were talking about. The subreddit was interesting as well. I was really pretty high on it because it was interesting. I went to a concert that Saturday night the episode premiered, and I as the concert ended, I turned on, the show and had it on my phone on the drive home, and then I had to go back to work with the other job just because it was so busy over there. So I just watched it the whole time over there and had a really good time watching it, as much as I would have preferred to, watch it on my TV at the apartment where I am now. It was, it didn't lose any of my attention watching it that way.
Nope.
So
okay. Lewis, how did you feel about the premiere?
I definitely enjoyed it. It felt fresh, apart from a couple aspects. It did feel like we're kind of the writers aren't afraid to try new stuff, but they're also not afraid to kind of stick to what works. I would like to see more new stuff. I don't hate, more plain Mikey sketches like Finance Bro. That was a good sketch, but it felt like it could have been done years ago. So I do think that can still work. That still has a place on the show. But when we've got 4 new cast members who can all bring very new perspectives, and we're still kind of messing with this Mikey stuff, it's kind of Mikey's a very talented performer, very talented writer, but I know we've seen people like Cecily last year kind of step back a bit, and I think it wouldn't hurt if Mikey did that, because then there's a lot of complaints that Mikey does get too much screen time. And I think those complaints would kind of go away, and it would also make the stuff he does better, because it's not as always there, always similar.
Interesting. Yeah, I think Mikey has been a big topic of conversation on the podcast this week. And we've just been, I've really been curious about the discourse about Mikey and how people feel about it. So for me, it's always interesting to get more opinions. And I think we're going to cover that when we go through our questions. So before we get there, Brennan, is there anything else off the top, any like overarching things that you just want to make sure that we cover, or should we get to them in the questions for you?
I mean, as much as I would just prefer to go through, all the sketches if we get the opportunity, of course. So there's always a little bit to say about each one. So
yeah, for sure. So why don't we go through some of those questions when we do, and then if there's ones that we don't cover at the end, we'll talk about some of the other opinions that you have about some of the sketches that we didn't get to talk about. Lewis, anything for you? Any overarching stuff before we get to the questions?
I'd really like to see more from the new cast members that aren't Michael Longfellow. I'm surprised we didn't get, because we've kind of had that usually each season where we get a sketch where it's just every cast member gets one small joke, and then that's it. We kind of got that with Manning cast, but I was still missing a few cast members. And yeah, I think Molly in the promo, that shows a lot of potential. Give us that in the show. And I will say the one sketch that did not click for me was Grimace. It did feel very misguided, they had the first idea and then they ran out of jokes to make about it. So they just brought in this new idea and ditched the old one. So it felt very misguided and not funny almost. The costume work was as good as always, because it is such a talented behind the scenes group, but the writing wasn't the best for me in that sketch. I would speak highly about most of the episode though.
Yeah, I think the Mcdonald sketch was the one sketch except for the Hot Take Show, where we really didn't talk about it that much this week. I mean, I didn't really have much to say about it. I don't know that there was much there. Like, I think that the only part, and I didn't even play this, was that gave me a laugh, was this. I'm loving both. Like, that was the only thing that made me laugh. But besides that, like, I don't know that the conceit where there was anything there. Brennan, for you, anything on the McDonald sketch?
Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't great, but I didn't hate it. Which is, I guess, high praise for most people. I'm almost positive it was the lowest rated over the subreddit this week. I'm trying to find that list right now. Give me 1 second.
Well, I will say that
pull that up. Yeah,
I can still kind of look for positives. I think Sarah was as great as ever. I love her delivery of stating incredibly obvious things or questioning things.
Yeah.
I think I'd really love to see her as the straight man more, even though that's not what you think of when you think of Sarah. And including, because I think PDD did that. Did they write that one?
Grimace? Yeah, PDD and Dan Bulla.
Yes. I did
and
really
Jake
like
Nordwin.
Yeah, I like the bit at the end when Keenan finally speaks and they just go, "You haven't spoken this whole time." I thought that was just a mistake in writing, that they hadn't in a line, but then they addressed it, and I was like, okay, that's kind of good.
Yeah. What do I even say? It was I was pretty high on the concept. I thought it was funny. I didn't realize. I mean, I should have, of course, known that it was Miles Teller, but I could not tell it was Miles Teller until I actually just thought about who else it could have been. But it was yeah. what a weird It's so weird. I don't know.
It's a very interesting pitch.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to the questions. I think we should cover them because we have a lot to cover, and then we'll come back to any other opinions that you have on some of the sketches. Okay. So thank you to everybody who sent in the questions this week. I will start with a question from Rachel, who I believe sent in some questions last year too. So thanks for joining us again, Rachel. Rachel says, and we're going to go back to the beginning of the episode. So Rachel wants to know, do you think that SNL will do something like the Manning cast again, or will they address any elements of the Manning cast? So, Brennan, what do you think?
Yeah. Oh, the cold open right off the bat. This was very entertaining. I would absolutely love to see something like this again. I think it would be more of less meta. Like, they're not watching SNL. They're watching an actual regular program that's going on that week. I don't know what it could have been, maybe like election coverage or something fun like that. But I thought the idea was pretty clever for sure. And I would totally not be against seeing it again. I don't know who they could get to play Peyton Manning besides, John, you know where I'm going with this. Just bring back the man himself. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it was great. The idea behind it was pretty cool, and yeah, I'd love to see it again. I don't think they're gonna outright mention it, but I think the jokes where they said we're not gonna see him again tonight probably, or getting the new cast members talking about what their first the corn kid and doing the gritty, and it was that's not going to happen again, but you're going to think about these characters. And of course, this is the first time we saw them. So it's almost perfect that, one of them gets a character that is trying to be purposeful. Another one is a character that flubs on accident. And the other two are just, we have to fit the other two in there. So that's a pretty clever way to do it for sure.
Lewis, what do you think? Do you think we're going to see the Manning cast as a cold open again?
I would not be against it. I was very scared at first when I see Manning cast being like, what's
Did you know what the Manning cast was, by the way?
No, I had no clue. I think until listening to the Hot Take Show, I didn't know the Manning cast was a real thing. I thought they just made it up. But when it first came on and I see Peyton Manning and Eli Manning, I'm like, is this an American football cold open? I, as a Brit, don't even care about British sport personally. So I was like, I might hate this. But then it switched to them watching SNL. And I'm like, oh, this is genius. Because it allowed, I talked about this on the Discord, but it allowed us to see J.J.'s Trump, how good an impression it is, without hearing the tired old Trump jokes we've been hearing since Baldwin, since Killam, since Darrell Hammond.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's kind of different Darrell Hammond. But it was a very good way of incorporating a lot of elements, having the newer cast members, the older cast members, just purposely flub as jokes. It seems that these new writers are much more aware of how much, not new writers, because I know Jost and a couple people worked on this one, but people are much more aware of the criticism SNL's faced, how it's kind of made fun of a lot, and they're taking that in their stride. Miles Teller did a weirdly great Peyton Manning.
Yep.
Andrew is the only Peyton and Eli I've seen are when they've hosted SNL. Andrew always doing that little one-tooth smile that Eli seems to have done. It was perfect. I really enjoyed it overall. Seeing Jon Hamm was nice as well.
Yep. And I didn't think about this at first, but I've seen the sketch probably 3 or 4 times now. And there are some weird jokes in here that should get really good laughs that are super meta, and they don't get any reaction from the audience. like the rebuilding year line doesn't get one. There's another Peyton Manning one that doesn't get there. I don't think it's the one where it's about the cold open, being the host in the cold open. I think it might be a reference, or like Jon Hamm mentioned something. But yeah, it was almost
it was
like
the
shocking.
Golden Era thing. That didn't get like that really worked for me, but I don't know if it works for everybody.
No, I know. Like the meta part was good, but I don't know why the audience wasn't 100% on the meta, because I was 100% on it. So
yeah, I mean, it was made for us, really. Like probably not the general public, but it was like
exactly.
That is like, I love that part. So
I think like the Heidi when I think what you're talking about with the whole audience being nervous to laugh, when they brought Heidi out and he goes, Heidi's never let me down, and she does kind of a bad impression or joke or whatever, the audience is like, they don't know straight away if that's supposed to be bad.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like, oh, that wasn't funny, but I also they're kind of awkward about it. So when Peyton makes a joke out of it, they're still kind of processing whether it's meant to be bad or not. Even though at home, I didn't like, but when she did that immediately, I was like, huh? And then I like after a second, I was like, oh, that is really funny. Yeah. I think being there live and also keeping in mind that they're on two different stages. Mm-hmm. They're going to be looking over at Heidi. They maybe didn't see, they maybe didn't even hear Peyton go, hey, Heidi's never let me down. Let's see this. And then Heidi does badly. They're just looking over there and seeing, wow, Heidi really messed that up. Mm-hmm. And they have to like take a second to go, oh no, that was the point. That might be why some of the laughs were kind of not as strong. Mm-hmm.
Bowen's facial expressions in this are really, really good.
They're great. Yeah. And I would agree. The soundstage things where they're like on separate stages probably had an impact on certain things with the live audience. But just to answer Rachel's question directly, will they do the Manning cast again? I think so. I think it was probably one of the better received cold opens in the last few years. I think that the next spot for it, for me, if I could choose, would be the Christmas show. I think that's where the one where you can do all these like tropes about the Christmas show, where you can bring in like cameos for it and stuff like that. And I think at that point it would be really fun. Like give it 8 episodes for it to come back again. Yeah. I think that's the time, like the Christmas show or the finale. Like those are the times where you do something like this, because it does feel like a special cold open that we got.
Yep. Looking at the sorry, you go.
I would like, ideally I'd like it between Miles Teller doing Peyton Manning, because that'd really be fun.
Good. Yeah. Looking at the subreddit scores, the Manning cast cold open is over 150 points higher than the second best thing. So I mean, we'll get to the second best thing when we get to it, but yeah, it was really well received, and I won't be surprised if this is like a top 5 cold open or top 3 by the end of the year, unless something really good comes out. So
I agree. And then a couple of years ago, we also had it where I think Chris Rock hosted the premiere and then cameoed in the finale for the final cold open. So like, it's not something that hasn't happened before. So we could see that again. Okay. So sort of in line with what we just spoke about, Victor Higgins, who is in the chat tonight. Hey, Victor, says, would you like to see more meta sketches like they did in the cold open? And Victor, I know you know me. Of course I would. But Lewis, how do you feel?
I really like meta sketches. I'm a massive Kyle Mooney fan. I think I've spoken about that on the show before, but he had this one line in the Billie Eilish episode where he starts singing. Billie comes along going, "Oh, hey Kyle, I didn't know you had such a great singing voice," and he just outright goes, "Yeah, the show doesn't know how to use me." And if you don't watch the show, you're like, "What?" But like, if you followed it and you've followed for years, seen how he's got caught, how people complain about that, it works so well and it's so funny. But it also is a case of the casual viewer tuning in just because, oh, it's Saturday night, I'm not out, let me watch some comedy. They're not going to find it as funny. Like, why are they making fun of their own show? Are they too nervous that it's not going to be funny? Yeah,
here's a great line from Kyle from last season.
He still calls me Beck Bennett.
Yeah, that was great then. And like, we love this stuff, right, Brennan?
Yeah, 100%. We love meta, of course. Do we have a Mikey Day question? I want to see if I want to get to that or not. Do you remember that? Seeing one, John, or not?
I don't remember. But yeah, get to it now. Why not?
Yeah, let's get to Mikey Day, because I love Kyle Mooney's stuff, and now Mikey Day is gonna do all of the Kyle stuff plus his stuff, and I'm mad that it doesn't work for people because now I'm super high on Mikey Day, and we'll get to. I mean, I don't know if we want to get to Rooftop Bar or when we want to get to it, but by far and away my favorite sketch of the night, and it's not even close. And I know a lot of people won't agree with me there, but I talked with like a friend and we had the same exact thoughts that this one was the best of the night. So
why do you feel that way? Let's talk about it now.
I don't want to just say cringe comedy, but the voices that both of the characters put on and the like change of persona as soon as the women walked up, and just some of the lines are so funny and so like heartbreakingly cringe that it's perfect. Like my favorite part of the entire night is when they ask if they're best friends and they go, black and white, I'll clap for that, and they start clapping. It's amazing. It's so well done. And then like the back and forth with the bartender where they're like, oh, why so much? It's not that funny to a lot of people, but I was metaphorically and possibly literally on the floor for parts of it. So the idea that these guys have, no shot at the bar is, I'm not saying familiar to me, but I've seen it before, and was very entertaining to see it written into, a live comedy show that I thought did a pretty good job of portraying, these two finance guys, and the roommate part at the end was the icing on the cake for me. So great sketch. Yeah. It's probably going to be one of my favorites of the year, and I know it's the first episode, so we'll see how early I eat those words. But my favorite sketch of the night, and I don't think I have anything else. Like S tier, and then like A- tier for everything else, and then below. So
okay, Lewis, how did you feel about that?
I would agree. I enjoyed it. I don't think it was my favorite of the night, but I think, being such a comedy fan, I watched that whole sketch going, I would enjoy this more if Mikey Day's character was Kyle Mooney. And that's a personal bias. Kyle Mooney he's probably, between him and Tim Robinson, like the best I've ever seen do cringe comedy. Mikey Day still did good.
Will Forte, yeah.
Will Forte too. That's a really good point, actually. But Mikey Day, he did well. I really liked it how they gave Miles characters he could commit to. Mm-hmm. I think those worked best because I think he wasn't that committed to Grimace, and that's why the sketch kind of part of it. I think the writing was also a major point. But this one, the Be Real sketch, which we'll probably get into a lot more later, and the cold open, Miles Teller had a lot of time with each of these characters and had very fleshed out aspects of these characters, and I think that really helped his performance. A lot of Ego and Chloe did really great as straight man. Mm-hmm. Ego's always a really good straight man, even though we don't see her as it much. I am really interested to see, now that we have Mikey doing Kyle stuff, like you said, and more other stuff, who's going to start filling that straight man role more, apart from Keenan, because I know he's done a lot. I do think Ego and Sarah will do very good at it. But I did enjoy the sketch overall, but I think it was stuck in my head. I wish it was Kyle Mooney. And that's probably going to be the case with a lot of cast members for a little bit.
Yeah, and then speaking of characters for Miles Teller, what a waste of him just being the game show host in that game show sketch. That's disappointing. But, it worked. It was fine. He was good in it. I would have liked to see him, do an impression just like he proved he could do in the cold open. So.
Okay, let's get to our next question, which is from our friend and fellow patron Ike Moore, who wanted to know, in honor of his appearance, what is your favorite Jon Hamm SNL sketch, and where do you rank him as far as your favorite hosts? Brennan, have you thought about this?
Yep. So my favorite Jon Hamm sketch is Daryl's house with Zach Galifianakis. So. Okay. It's a fun take because it's not actually his sketch, but his appearance in it is so well built up, and it's just the perfect payoff. Just like with him being in the cold open for this one, God, Jon Hamm, he is very, 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 very good every time he's on the show, and he's proved that time and time again. If I had to pick another option, it would be Halloween special. So where he's JFK. Yeah.
Okay.
Vincent Price's Halloween special.
Yeah, he's very, very good in that. Lewis, do you have any favorite Jon Hamm sketches?
Yes. It's close between Hamm and Bublé with Michael Bublé. The pun alone is great, but then Michael Bublé slowly delving into how he's being held hostage, and him actually being a very talented sketch performer with his comedic timing kind of makes it even better. And it's between that and Closet Organizer with Will Forte.
What a good choice.
The fact that links into a sketch later in the episode, it's so clever because you don't see it coming if you're watching the episode live. The only reason I went and watched that sketch was because I knew they were both connected. But it's so clever, and they don't really do it ever. So it's interesting. And then I also really like Jon Hamm as a host. He's a very good blend between a comedy actor and a drama actor. And I really like both of those on their own. So the fact that he can do both makes him a very versatile host, which we don't see too much of.
Yeah, my take on the roundtable on Monday was that I think Jon Hamm is Steve Martin in another life. Like if he was born 20 years earlier, I think he hosts the show like 15 times. But yeah, he is fantastic as a host. All 3 times he was there. My favorite sketch with Jon Hamm is probably one of my favorite sketches of all time. And I saw our friend Gelp in the chat just brought it up.
I saw it too.
It's the Jeff Montgomery sex offender sketch. And to me, I've seen that sketch. Like I kid you not, almost 100 times. Like it's still makes me laugh,
I forgot that was Jon Hamm. Actually, that is a very good one.
That sketch is like for me, like watching an episode of Friends. Like I could see it a million times and it still makes me laugh. Like that is so hilarious and funny. And that sketch was actually cut from the Brian Williams episode of SNL and was like only put on like a year later. So that was crazy. But yeah, I absolutely love that. With regards to like where Jon Hamm ranks for me, so I'm just going to talk about like in terms of like probably the easiest way to categorize it is to compare him to his peers. So let's talk about like the 3-time SNL host. I'll read out the list and I'll tell you like sort of where I see him there in order of the last time that they hosted. So Lily Tomlin, Howard Hessman, Terry Garr, Robin Williams, John Lithgow, Roseanne Barr, Madeline Kahn, Tom Arnold, Rob Lowe, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Jack Black, John Malkovich, then Jon Hamm, Robert De Niro, Gwyneth Paltrow, Anne Hathaway, Martin Short, Zach Galifianakis, Seth Rogen, and Jim Carrey, Michael Keaton, Miley Cyrus, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Jimmy Fallon, Kevin Hart, Steve Carell, Jennifer Lopez, Eddie Murphy, Adam Driver, and Chris Rock. So there are a lot of 3-time hosts in the history of SNL. I think he's probably in like an upper tier there of like the names that stand out on the list for me. I mean, I think Lily Tomlin in her era was very good. I think for me, Robin Williams, I think is an all-time great SNL host, hosting 3 times. Sarah Michelle Gellar, I've always been a very big fan of her appearances on Saturday Night Live. And then in the more modern times, I would look at the names like Anne Hathaway, Martin Short, obviously former cast member. And then I think Jimmy Fallon's obviously had some great appearances as a host on SNL. Eddie Murphy, obviously, you have to like throw in there as a caveat a little bit. But those would be the names, like probably in the upper tier for me. What do you guys think? Any names on the list that I didn't mention that stood out to you?
Not that you didn't mention, but I was going to do the like the weird hot take, but I just looked it up and it turns out they hosted 4 times. But I mean, they're never gonna get that 5-timers club now. But I thought Louis C.K. only hosted 3 times, and he was Zach Galifianakis is going to be the one I'm going to add there unless you already said that one. But I love all of his appearances on SNL, so I'm going to say Zach Galifianakis is up there. And then I'm a big fan of Anne Hathaway. I think she was like one of the first episodes I ever watched. So when she was on for Thanksgiving episode. So
yeah, Lewis, any of the hosts that I listed that we didn't mention?
That is a list of massive talent. For me, Kevin Hart, Jim Carrey, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I've been on a Seinfeld binge recently, and she is very talented. I've been going back and watching her sketches. But yeah, that is a list of like insane talent, and I think we will probably end up seeing a few of them hit 5 timers at least.
Yeah, and if you want a little bit of a hot take, I would say that if Jon Hamm hosted a 4th time, I think he's probably also one of the best 4-time hosts.
Yeah. No, for sure.
It's a much shorter list, but I'll list them out. Like Eric Idle, Michael Palin, Paul Simon. I mean, all of their times. Ashton Kutcher, Dana Carvey, Lindsay Lohan, Cameron Diaz, Louis C.K., James Franco, Charles Barkley, Emma Stone. Emma Stone, yeah, the hits keep coming. Emma Stone and Woody Harrelson and Kristen Wiig. Like, I think she probably, like, if you host one more time, it'd be like in the Emma Stone category, probably like that type of thing. Dana as well. And if you're a big fan of the Monty Python people, then of course. But yeah, so really love Jon Hamm. Always love when he shows up on SNL. Let's take this next question from our friend Jeremy Boulard. Thanks for joining us again this season. Jeremy asks, I noticed there was a lot of discussion online this week about the Charmin sketch being plagiarized. Will SNL ever address this? Well, we didn't get to talk about this on the podcast very much this week, but basically, from my understanding, I'll try my best to explain what happened. But there is a YouTube creator who's blown up, like, he's pretty big, and he's created a sketch called Toilet Paper Bears. His name is Joel Haver. And he created this sketch a while back that's all animation, and it follows a Charmin family with an artistic son attempting to leave the family business. Very similar to what we saw here. Anyways, Joel made a video this week, which is a really wonderful video where he put out that the video is called SNL Stole My Sketch. And I thought it was really fascinating because this is not the first time I've seen this. I've seen this in podcasting for 3 years. This happens all the time where someone's like, oh, they stole my idea, whatever. But this was the first time that I've seen a creator come out and basically say, hey, this happens. And, you know, maybe there was some coincidence, maybe somewhere this got incepted, but like it happens. It's fine. Like, I love what I created. SNL did a good job with theirs. And I'm going to shout out other small creators because I was once one. And they were totally cool about it. They didn't like incite the mob who's like looking to blame SNL for plagiarism. So I was really, really impressed with what Joel Haver put out this week. But if you're interested and curious about that, definitely check that out. I'll just say, like, my overall take on this is like, I don't know that I call it plagiarism, really. Like, I guess there's a lot of similarities here, but like, I don't think that any SNL writer who's like has one of the greatest jobs in the world is like finding a sketch online and deciding, hey, I'm going to recreate this on the show. I just think like there's just like a series of coincidences. And like the only caveat I would say to like would be like, I would think that the writers of the sketch maybe like would want like to send like Joel a message and just be like, hey, like I saw that your sketch existed as well, like wishing you the best, like type of thing. So at least acknowledge it to him. But beyond that, like, I don't really think this is that big of a deal. Lewis, did you feel like it was?
Not really. I'm a fan of Joel Haver before this. I think he's made some really funny stuff. I think I've been doing a lot more comedy writing and writing in general recently. And I have found that accidentally stealing ideas seems to happen a lot. There was a sketch that I worked on in the summer of last year and kind of left for a while. And I returned to it in the last couple of weeks. And I was reading through it and I was like, I rewatched this joke last week. I must have accidentally stole this because I watched it the first time a couple of years ago. I must have accidentally stole this idea from someone without realizing it. That happens a lot. I know it happens to musicians a lot, where they'll accidentally steal. They'll have heard something and it'll have sat in their brain for a while and they'll forget that they've seen it somewhere else. There is a very small chance this was an entire coincidence and none of it was ever related. I think that what has most likely happened is one of the writers saw this sketch because it's like a year-old sketch, I think.
I think it's been out a while, but like,
yeah.
Yeah, but you know what also I find it interesting? Like, I always find it very interesting how whenever SNL does a sketch that's like anyone else's online that's unrelated to SNL, all of a sudden it's plagiarism. But when SNL creates a sketch that's very similar to one that they created 30 years ago in the 80s, it's not plagiarism. It's just inspired. So like, to me, it's like all the same thing. It's like you get your ideas where you get your ideas. Brendan, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, so the important thing here is when people were first like, SNL stole it. I can't believe it. Then they went like digging in the hole to see if any of the SNL writers followed Joel Haver, and they're like, one of the PDD guys follows him. And then I was like, oh, I can't wait to see if PDD wrote this sketch. And then they didn't write the sketch. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So that's the end of that part. 2018, Gus Johnson on YouTube. He got his America's Got Talent sketch stolen by SNL, where it would be the like ugliest looking person go on America's Got Talent, and they'd make fun of him, and then he'd be like the best singer ever, and that was the whole premise. And like that's like a dual thinking thing. I know I thought about that before I saw either the SNL sketch or the Gus Johnson sketch. Anyway, I'm a super big fan of Joel Haver, so I recognized this right away, and I was like, oh, I've seen this before. This is very funny. They don't have to mention. There's no reason to bring it up. There's no reason for them to do something insane like go on, use 30 seconds of their 90 minutes every week and apologize to Joel
they
Haver.
never would.
I know, they never would. There's no reason to do that, yeah.
No, but I'm saying, like, if the writer wants to like DM Joel Haver, like,
that part for sure. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I don't know. The sketch wasn't that funny. His original version was better. I don't care. It was fine.
Yeah, no, I definitely in Joel Haver's version of the sketch. I don't think we got all the stuff about going off to doo-doo college and all that. Yeah,
that was great.
So, yeah, exactly. So I think there are like slight differences.
Yeah,
here.
The doo-doo college versus the toilet paper mines, of course. So
yeah exactly. Lewis, anything else on this?
That Gus Johnson thing. I forgot about that for a while. Just Gus Johnson got into a thing about a year ago. I haven't really followed him since. But when that Gus Johnson thing happened a few years ago, when that Gus Johnson thing happened a few years ago, I wasn't following SNL, but I was following Gus Johnson. I was like, wow, that's really weird. The Gus Johnson thing was different because I think that he made that sketch on YouTube like a week before SNL did it.
Yeah,
sounds right. This was like a year, so I think it's much more likely this was completely accidental. It could be a coincidence. It could be they saw it, they forgot they saw it and thought they just thought of it themselves. That Gus Johnson thing could also be maybe they saw it on their phone at 5 a.m. and then wrote it the next day at
5 a.m.
8 a.m. after waking up, and they forgot. They thought they just thought of it when they actually saw it on YouTube.
Yeah, I didn't see anywhere in the Joel Haver sketch where they said this.
We do two things.
Yeah.
We eat honey and we shoot it out.
None of that. Okay, well, anyways, that's my 2 cents on all of that, which was a big topic of conversation on the internet this week. Okay, this is a question from our friend who titled his question as
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Asks thoughts on Devin Walker's first week at SNL. So Devin Walker had an interesting week. He played, he was the second most appeared rookie performer. So in the cold open, he played Corn Kid Tariq. And then we got in the final sketch of the night, we got him playing Frank Ocean, which was, that was, I guess, a night of impressions for him. And then he also played a security guard in the Be Real pre-tape. So how are we feeling about Devin Walker's first night at the show, Brennan?
Good night for him. Yeah, good night for him. I mean, first one was a really good meta joke where, it's always the first impression that's important. And, he got stuck with Corn Kid, where I only saw the first video and then I didn't see anything else. The original Corn Kid video, I was like, I guess that's kind of funny, and then I didn't follow it anymore. But good for the kid, he's making money off of the thing. Anyway, I thought it was really funny. I knew I got the reference and stuff, so I know other people did. I know the people that didn't get the reference thought it was interesting that they got him playing a random character, and then the other people who got the reference and got the meta part, it worked really well. To this is his first character, he gets Corn Kid, wow, how embarrassing. That's extra funny and actually extra sad. And then Be Real sketch, it's always good to get them in there. I think all the newbies are in Be Real, right? Maybe not Longfellow.
I don't think we got all of the newbies in Be Real. So in Be Real, we had Marcelo and Devin, but no Molly or Michael Longfellow in that one.
Oh, I must have thought someone else was Molly then. Anyway, yeah, that's fine. That's a fine little appearance. And then the joke that Billy Ocean and Frank Ocean aren't related. I guess that was pretty funny. So I don't know. Caribbean Queens was fine. A good 10-1, I guess. So or suitable 10-1.
Yeah. I didn't even get to say on the podcast this week that Billy Ocean actually performed Caribbean Queens on SNL back in 1985. So that was
nice.
Like a funny little meta moment. Lewis, how'd you feel about Devin Walker's night?
I want to see more from the rookies. That's really all I can say. He was good. As the Frank Ocean joke was good. His delivery on that line was good. When all the new customers got announced, I did go and watch stand up from all of them. And Devin and Michael's were my favorite, so I do really hope we see him soon. We will probably see him on the update desk by Christmas, is my guess. But yeah, not a bad night for first episode.
Yeah, I agree. I really liked what we got to see from Devin. I mean, I want to get to know their personalities, want to see how they do on the show. But I think he was game. So like, no bad things to say about him. I think just, I sort of felt like, if going into the episode, Marcelo and Molly were the betting favorites for having the most screen time and most impact on the first episode. And they always, subvert our expectations. So for me, very exciting what we got from Michael and Devin. Will be interesting to see how it compares to week number 2. Okay. Next question we got from our friend Blood Meridian, who always sends in some great questions. So thanks for that, Blood. He says, or they say, because it's a pseudonym, Blood Meridian says, as we are just at the beginning of the new season and potentially a new era of the show looming ahead, Lauren hired 4 newbies who are specifically stand-up comics instead of the usual improv trained performers. Do you hope that these hires, alongside other stand-ups already in the cast like Sarah and James, would create positive tension between them and the improv trained performers like Bowen, Chloe, and Mikey, leading to a potentially unique ensemble of performers with refreshingly diverse comedic sensibilities for this new era? Thanks, guys, and keep up the great work. So, Lewis, how do you feel about the comparison of these two types of cast members in the cast? Do you think it's clicking where we're going to have all these stand-ups and all of these performers?
There's a lot of ideas in my head I have in response to that kind of question, because I look at it from many different angles. One angle of, is sketch comedy as popular as it used to be? Are there as many people trying to bring in characters, do improv, just make sketches? Stand-up comedy's kind of gotten really big in the last few years as it is fairly accessible. Then another more parts of me is kind of like, maybe they want a new Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson was a stand-up. He was really successful in the show because even if you didn't really care about the sketch aspect, you could watch his weekend update bits. And then another part of me is like, what we've seen is that it's much easier to, quote, turn someone who does stand-up into someone who can do stand-up and sketch, compared to someone who can do sketch comedy to turn them into someone who can do sketch and stand-up comedy, as we've seen with Pete Davidson and Leslie Jones.
Yeah, Brennan, would love to get your opinion on this, but I think it's circumstantial, really, that they ended up hiring 4 stand-up comics in the end because of COVID and its impact on all the comedy troops that are out there and the ability to go out and train and do all that stuff. Like the usual prospects that are being built for SNL were not necessarily done in the same way, but it's a beautiful thing that really happened because it forced them to go against the conventional what they were doing before, and puts them in a stage where we have like something to the effect of like the mid 90s where you have like a lot of stand-up comics, and it's something that we need that's different for the show. So Brennan, what do you think?
I have no doubt in my mind that SNL just picked the 4 best people that they liked over their interview / audition process, and it turned out to be 4 stand-up comedians. And fun fact, I met Michael Longfellow when I worked at the House of Comedy in Minneapolis. So cool. He was a really cool guy. I met him in 2020, and I have a blurry memory now, but either he tipped me $20 or it was a different comedian that tipped me $20. But I know I helped, Michael Longfellow put on a show one night in 2020, so that was pretty cool. So he's my he's gonna be my one to root for right now, and not even including the the Weekend Update stand-up bit, which he has better stand-up bits. So there's my hot take there. Anyway, so they picked 4 good people, and we'll see in the next few weeks how well they start gelling into the actual, sketch part of SNL.
I just think the thing to watch, right, is like, where do they use the stand-ups in sketches for characters, right? Like, obviously we saw like Devin could do some impressions. They weren't like necessarily like the most amazing impressions, but like, the question will be like, do we start to get to see some like characters from the 4 new cast members? I think we're going to talk about the Gleason episode coming up with some of the questions. I think in the promo we got with Molly, for the Gleason episode, I think Molly was giving some Chris Farley vibes in there, which I'll say that I co-opted that take a little bit from our friend Thomas Senna, who I saw said that in the Discord, but I was thinking the exact same thing, and not plagiarism, right? You could think the same things, but I basically, I'm curious to see which ones will adapt and which will be sort of like forced to stay in that stand-up mold. Lewis, anything else on this, or are you good?
I'm good. I am very interested to see how it goes with this increase of stand-ups we've got. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Let's take this question from Kylie Leonard. Kylie wants to know, what happened to Cecily Strong? Is she coming back? Concerned listener here. Okay. So Cecily is coming back. I believe she's coming back on the 29th of October. I'm pretty sure that I saw that online this week that was published. Of course, you never know with these things, but I'm pretty sure we got 3 episodes without Cecily, and we're going to get 18 episodes with Cecily. So I'm fairly positive, like in the time off where they're going to have 1 week off, during October, I think that they're going to do some filming with her to put her into the promos and stuff. I think it's going to be very fascinating to see how she does on the show. I've sort of talked, or have treaded around the fact that I'm like dreading it a touch just because I don't know exactly how it's going to fit with all this new era talk. But would love to get both of your opinions on this. Lewis, are you excited to get Cecily back?
Cecily Strong is my favorite cast member currently.
Oh, good. Okay.
So has been for all. So I'm very excited to get her back. I am interested to see how it goes. I do think she will take somewhat of a step back and more so do the musical stuff, because I don't think we really got a musical sketch this week. That could probably be to do with the lack of Cecily. But I don't know if Cecily's one to bring her own old ideas in like Mikey has been. I think she might be like, hey, new writers, if you want to put me in sketches, please do. But I'm not going to try too much of my own new stuff.
Brennan, how are you feeling about the return of Cecily coming up in a few weeks?
Yeah. No, that's a bad start. No, I'm very excited to see her. Yeah, sure. Yeah, she's one of my favorites too. And, I won't be mad if she takes her spotlight back, because, of course, she deserves it after 11 seasons. But, if we thought last year was going to be her last year, it's a little more obvious or so that this year could be more likely for her exit. And if it happens, what a awesome SNL career. I won't be sad if she takes a step back. But I'll be, I'll be very happy just to have her back on the show. So,
yeah, I agree. And I was told by some like conversations I was having with people about Cecily Strong, like over the summer, that they could eventually see her as like a female Keenan who just like sticks around the show a long time. So I think we have to like change our perception of it. But just like, I haven't gotten to see her on the show with all these new cast members yet. So I'll, save my opinion for when that comes. But I guess we have a few weeks to go before we get her back on the show. Okay. Question from our friend Ike also asked, I noticed that good night, no one had any masks, as well as the table read setting is somewhat normal now. John, do you know if any COVID protocols have been lifted when it comes to putting the show together this season? So I did text somebody who's close to the show today to ask to find out what the deal is with this. So I was told no masks in the audience either. Masks are required on the floor for crew and when you're not in a sketch. So that's the answer for that. So yeah, I believe they're probably scaling back some of the protocols. I don't think it's like fully back to normal, but I would say, yeah, probably like mostly there. Maybe in 2023, we're going to see like completely back to normal COVID stuff. Okay. Let's take this next question from Amanda Barkin. So Amanda wanted to know, will the show cover Kanye's latest antics this weekend now that Pete has left the show? So this was an interesting question to me, right? Because last season, and thank you, Amanda, fellow patron. So last year there was a lot of stuff obviously that went down between Pete Davidson and Kanye West. None of it got addressed until the finale when Pete was back and he made like a somewhat alluded to the situation. But now we do have some Kanye stuff happening. So if you're not following along, I'm not Nicole, so I can't like explain everything that's happening with the Kanye stuff. But my understanding is he went on another rant this week about, his kids not being allowed to be with him on their birthdays, and it was a whole thing. So I think there's a lot of drama with Kanye that continues to happen. Brennan, do you think that they would address some Kanye stuff now that Pete's not there?
I mean, you got the guy that plays. No, no, I'm kidding. Kanye gets a joke or two in Weekend Update, and I'm pretty sure that's it for him, unless they want one of the other stand-ups to talk about him. I don't see him getting a sketch, especially with Chris Red gone. It was I was in line for the concert when some of the stuff went down, so we had a fun chat between the six of us about Kanye. So I feel bad for him sometimes, but it's a lot to process with that guy. So Kanye is gonna get a Weekend Update joke or two. Who knows if they get cut in dress rehearsal or not? So that's about it, though.
Lewis, do you think we're going to see any Kanye jokes this week?
I think from Colin and Michael. I just don't know how they do it because obviously with Chris gone, with how the last time Kanye was on the show went, I can't see them going too hard into the sketch. If they do a Kanye sketch, my ideal way is they bring Jay back because Jay's Kanye is so good. It would be nice to see him back. I don't know if Devin has a Kanye or they have any celebrities they'd want to bring in, but I'm kind of sick of the Kanye jokes because we've had them. You can go back and look at 2012 and look at the Kim Ye show that they did with the Seaman J. And
you can go back more than that.
You can. That's a fair point.
You can go back to 2005 where you can watch a Kanye Mike Myers thing.
Yeah.
The real Kanye,
there you go.
Hurricane Katrina stuff. So, I mean, this is going back a long, long time. But yeah, I would be interested to see if they would want to touch that. So again, I think that it would be. I think the answer is yes, right? Like I don't think it's off limits. I think it's off limits when Pete was there and it was a very awkward situation, and they're obviously not trying to upset Pete. But
yeah,
was he really there? But it is what it is. As
he was in the opening credits, and that's all that matters, of course.
Yeah. So okay, that's pretty much that. Okay, let's turn our attention to Brendan Gleeson's episode for a couple questions. So we got a question in from Jake Novak. I assume not the real Jake Novak, but Jake Novak.
Please be the real one. Please be the real one.
I hope it's the real one. It says, how cool was that Brendan Gleeson promo? So this is referring to the promo where basically it's not the one that came out today, which was him and Chloe Fineman and Willow. It was him where he's skateboarding around Studio 8H, going through everything and just being like this kind of like a dick and just talking to the camera, like flipping off the camera. And Molly is playing a security guard who's running around chasing after him. And it is a really like fun, cool return to this like pre-COVID era where they would do these like produced promos during the week. And it was like kind of done like through like a fisheye lens, which just sort of gave it that like skater vibe. So I thought this was really cool and like sort of gave me hope and excitedness for what we're going to get from Brendan Gleeson this week, who's a character actor and probably our biggest mystery for potentially what we might see on the show this week. So Brendan, how did you feel about that promo we saw?
Ooh, that was wonderful. That was really good. That makes me really excited for this weekend because he was the most interesting of the 6 names that they announced for host / musical guest for the first 3 weeks. I'm a huge fan of In Bruges, which is one of my favorite movies, and he is the best part of that movie, if you ask me. He's a great actor. He's got a cool voice. He's got a cool look to him. He's got a cool son. I guess that's a weird thing to say, but Donald Gleason is
Gleason.
pretty cool too. Yeah.
Oh, that's his...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know. I love that guy. Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah, yeah, they're related. It's crazy. But yeah, I love when they grab the random old guy or whatever, and they're like, "Here you go, you host SNL. You deserve it." After a while, they brought in Liam Neeson to host in was it 2003, 2002? Yeah. God. They get these names every now and then. It shocks me, and it makes me really excited. So this is a great little promo. I'm really excited to see what we get this weekend.
We always love it when anyone has a son in their last name. I think those are good potential hosts. Lewis, you excited? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Brendan. What are you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say I see this being like Willem Dafoe from last year. Yeah. So
okay,
I was on that one. So
good. Okay. So, Lewis, how are you feeling about the promo that we got for Brendan Gleeson's episode and him coming up?
I'm very excited. I love when SNL brings in a dramatic actor. I love to see a Brit on the show. I don't really know him that well. I know he's in Paddington 2, which I love that film. But he seemed very much wanting to have fun in the promo. That was a very fun promo of just... It felt like one of the younger writers came to him and was like, let's do this bit where this old, big Irish man plays this American skater teen. And that's the joke, and it's a funny joke. And Molly coming in, they're doing physical comedy, which I think we talked about a bit at the end of last season about how this show has not had as much physical comedy in a while. Maybe Molly could bring that back. I've only seen some of their stand-up, so I don't know if they're have that many ideas or that potential in them for sketches. But I'm very excited to see a dramatic actor play it. I'm very interested to see how they put him in sketches, because when I think of a sketch, I think of a dinner scene or just a school setting, and I don't know how they'd fit him into stuff like that. So I am very excited. This is going to be a very weird but fun show.
Lewis, let me ask you. So, the American perspective on Brendan Gleeson is a lot of people know him from specific projects. Let's say I knew him more from Harry Potter than anything else. But is he really popular across the pond?
Not in Scotland, at least. I feel like I know Irish people. They probably know him more than I do, more so because he's Irish. There's a lot of Scottish actors who I would say are big in Scotland. Okay. You will have heard of them. Kelly Mcdonald, she voiced Meredith in Brave. She actually went to the same high school as me. But Americans might not know her name, but Scots do, because she's a big American actor despite being Scottish. I think no one here really tunes into SNL because it's very hard to watch it if you're not watching it through YouTube. So I don't think this is a thing where they're trying to draw in British people to watch the show. Brennan Gleeson.
Actually, though, I would say if you look at our demographics of the listenership that we get, we actually do have a lot of listeners coming in from the UK.
That is surprising. It's the YouTube thing. But I wouldn't say, if I went up to my parents, they might know him from older classic stuff. My gran, who is Irish, will definitely know him. But yeah, older people will know him, and I think that extends to America. I think they're going for an older audience here, but I think that young people will still enjoy it.
Okay. And then we did have a question that was from our friend Ryan Peters, who wants to know thoughts and expectations for the Gleason episode. So why don't we wrap up our discussion about that on this? Give me one prediction for this week for the Gleason episode that you think will happen on the show this week. Brendan, you got anything?
Oh, let's see. This might be a weird one. I want to see him do an American accent. And
okay.
That's something weird and interesting. We could probably get a Harry Potter sketch. That'd be weird.
That'd be very fun.
Yeah, been a while since we've seen one of those. So, yeah, I am excited for him to host. Let's see what chops he can bring to this American show in support of his new movie with Martin McDonagh, who directed it, which is one of my favorite directors. So cool.
Okay, Lewis, give me one prediction for this Gleason episode.
I'm going to say we get a sketch where the rest of the cast in that sketch uses Irish accents. There's this one we got a few years ago with James McAvoy and Kate McKinnon.
Yep. I love that
one. The Scottish traffic controllers. There's been drama teachers in my school who have just showed that to people and going, this is how Americans view Scottish accents. I've showed that to other Scottish people and they find that hilarious. I do really I like the Irish accent. I can understand it. So I wouldn't hate them doing a sketch of like, oh, wow, the Irish accent's so hard to understand. Well, me and tons of other Brits watch it and go, yeah, they just speak like how Irish people actually speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of the James McAvoy episode, it has the best Charmin sketch. It's Charmin. I love that sketch. I love James McAvoy in that sketch. It's so dumb, and then his accent is so funny. He's doo-doos. I think he says doo-doos. It's a great sketch.
You know what? I'm trying to place in my head. There is a sketch that is a pre-tape that happened like somewhere in like the 2010 to like 2013 range, where it's a pre-tape of an action movie, and they're all speaking in accents and like.
Oh, yep. Don't go round to rero.
Thank you. Yes, that one exactly. Yeah,
that Russell Brand in it. Yeah.
Yes, Russell Brand. Thank you. I was looking through the archives, just trying to figure out what episode that possibly could be from. But yeah, that's the type of thing that I wouldn't mind seeing this week. Okay. So, those are our thoughts on the Miles Teller week and our predictions looking ahead to the Brendan Gleeson week. Brendan, if there's, let's just, because we're a little bit short on time, let's just run through any other sketches that you just really want to make sure that you just say a couple words on. So I think you said Be Real before. You wanted to say something about that, right?
Yeah. So with the Be Real sketch, it was very, very lucky that the person I went to the concert with got their Be Real notification a few hours before SNL came out that night. So she's like, oh, we gotta take the Be Real. I was like, I don't know what that is. And she explained it to me 3 hours before SNL did the sketch where they explained how Be Real works. And now I'm seeing people online where they're like, I don't know how Be Real works. I'm like, did you watch the sketch? They explain it and it's super funny. Yeah. And also
it was very good.
Yeah.
I love that one. That was great. And then the other sketch that I had a note on that I wanted to say on this show, because I didn't get a chance to talk about it earlier, was the AMC Theater Sketch.
Yes.
Chloe Fineman was on air with Ryan Seacrest on Monday morning in LA. And she was, so she obviously played Nicole Kidman in this, and she came on for a few minutes. And she was talking about something that I don't think was publicized anywhere, which was that they had to change some elements of this, like right before the show, because Lorne Michaels thought that it was too much. Like they turned up the dial too much on her impression of Nicole Kidman, where she was actually, I believe I don't know if it was the dress version or the previous version, she was almost playing Nicole Kidman like a witch. And they started to make it like, so like it got really crazy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and they dialed it back. So that was a really fun interview. If you get a chance to listen to that, it's actually available on air with Ryan Seacrest's website, so you can check that out. But she was talking about that element of things with Ryan and Tanya and Cecily on that show. So really great to get to that.
Yeah, that probably has my second favorite sketch of the second favorite line of the night, where they go. It was okay. It's number 2 behind the I'll clap for that, where she goes, the indescribable feeling, and she goes, oh, can't describe it.
It was really great. Okay, well, Brennan Lewis, this was fantastic to get to talk to you on the first week of patron feedback shows. We're going to definitely have you again throughout the season. So looking forward to talking to both of you. Lewis, I'll start with you. Where can the listeners check out everything you got going on?
I usually promote my Twitter, but some point later in this month, I will be at a stand-up and sketch show my uni's running, and that will be getting filmed. So cool. I'll post that to my Instagram, which is all lowercase Lewis_Cooper. 04. So if I do get that, I will share that. I'm very excited about that.
Nice. That's awesome. Brennan, where can the listeners check out everything you got going on?
Yeah. Let's follow me on Twitter and Instagram at KellerB57. Otherwise, and more importantly, that's the Reddit handle. Go to the Live from New York subreddit. In about 3 or 4 hours, I'm posting the SNL predictions for this week. So you can predict what you see on the episode, predict if we get a recurring sketch, predict who's going to show up in the monologue possibly, fun stuff like that. I'm just tallying up the scores from last week. The person who did it the year before is not on Reddit anymore, so I just joined on that. So now I do 3 things in the subreddit. On Thursdays, we're going to predict them. Saturdays, we're going to discuss them. And on Sundays, we're going to rate the sketches. So it'll be a fun week. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's also really good to collaborate with all the moderators over at the Live from New York subreddit who actually always pin our hot take show as a place to go on Saturday. So if you're ever on the subreddit and you're looking for a link to our hot take show, you can find it there as well.
Yep.
Okay. Well, you can check out everything we got going on at the SNL Network. Last night, we posted our screen time for week number 1, which is a great analytics chart that Mike Murray works very hard on, and Nicole Rovine puts together those graphics. So they talked about that with me on the By the Numbers show, and then they put up that chart. So if you want to see all the analytics of week number 1, that is available now. For now, we're going to turn our attention to the Brendan Gleeson episode. So we will be live for the Hot Take Show at 1:10 a.m. on Saturday to break down all of the sketches. It was originally going to be Andrew Dick and TJ on that show. Unfortunately, TJ was not able to make it in the end for this weekend. So we have a sub coming in. We're going to have Bill Kenny and Andrew Dick this weekend. And then TJ will join us for another show coming up. And we will get that pairing of Andrew Dick and TJ coming up very soon. But we have all season for that. So looking forward to that. And then we have our roundtable on Monday nights. And we are expected to be joined on our roundtable by Andrew Haynes, Victoria Franzo, and Kaylee Morrison on the roundtable on Monday. So can't wait to get to talk to those 3 about the second episode of Saturday Night Live season 48. All right. So thanks everybody for joining us on the chat chat on this Thursday evening. We're going to be live at different times on Thursday. So make sure to check out social media to find out when our patron feedback shows are. Thank you to everybody who sent in some questions, and for Brennan Lewis and myself, Jon Schneider from the Saturday Night Network. We will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.